Okay, so first things first, this show was recommended to me by one of my subscribers, and if it wasn't for them, you wouldn't be watching this review right now. So, big shout out to Rashi. I hope I pronounced that right. Sorry for the super long wait, and thanks again for staying on me about doing this review. All right, Secret Love Affair is a K-drama. You can watch it on viki.com. I paid around $5 to watch it without ads because watching it with ads was literally killing me inside and crushing my soul. But if you're a patient person or you just don't want to pay money, you can watch it there for free as well with ads. This drama came out in 2014 and was directed by An Pan-suk, who also directed Something in the Rain and One Spring Night, coming out in 2018 and 2019, respectively. I like to refer to these three dramas unofficially as the Nuna trilogy, even though they are not sequels or part of the same fictional universe in any sense. They are very similar in broader subject matter, premise, and themes. Although all three dramas were directed by An Pan-suk, Secret Love Affair is the only one of the three written by Jung Sung-ju, whereas Something in the Rain and One Spring Night are written by Kim Eun-suk. Secret Love Affair also has the same casting crossover as One Spring Night and Something in the Rain, so if you've seen one or both of the other two, you'll definitely see some familiar faces. For anyone new to the channel, first part of this review will be spoiler-free with a deeper analysis section with spoilers coming afterwards. I hope you enjoy the review and your time here on the channel, and with that being said, let's get started. So here's the synopsis of the show, courtesy of the almighty Wikipedia. Oh Hye-won is a 40-year-old woman who feels that she's leading a fulfilling life. Elegant, sophisticated, and excellent at dealing with people. She spares no effort in her quest for success as the director of planning for the Sohan Arts Foundation. But when she meets Lee Sun-jae, a 20-year-old genius pianist from an impoverished background who is unaware of his ability and works as a quick delivery guy, Hye-won experiences for the first time what truly falling in love is like, and she and Sun-jae begin a passionate affair which they must keep secret because it threatens to unravel both of their lives. Okay, so now that we've covered the basic premise, I'll go over all of the reasons why I thoroughly enjoyed this drama, why I think it's so well made, and what some of the broader themes it covers are. So to begin with, the soundtrack was absolutely phenomenal in this show. A really nice collection of piano pieces which never felt intrusive and were used in the perfect amount of moderation. The overall tone the soundtrack brings to the experience is this sense of calm, elegance, and poise, accompanied by an undertone of sadness, which I think perfectly fits Hye-won. The soundtrack, in a sense, is the soundtrack of her character and her story. So obviously the use of piano music is fitting, with so much actual piano playing being done by the characters themselves. The use of non-diegetic and diegetic music is balanced really well, and I think it's part of the reason why the non-diegetic soundtrack is used so sparingly, because the show's subject matters allows for the characters themselves to play their own soundtracks, in a sense. There are also many moments in the show, I guess mainly with the two lead roles, where their piano playing becomes their voices, their way of communicating and expressing themselves. And this carries over to us watching the show, as it serves as a soundtrack within the moment, within the scene itself. And I think that just makes it so much more immersive and powerful. And okay, let me shut up about the soundtrack. Let's move on. The acting was impressive. Both the leads give amazing performances. I have never seen Kim Hee-ae. As always, I'm sorry about pronunciations. I do my best. Please don't crucify me. I'd never seen her in any other drama or movie before, but she killed it. And of course, my guy Yoo Ha-in did his thing. A lot of you guys might know him from other dramas like Chicago Typewriter, for instance, or if you're like me, maybe from the movie Burning, one of my personal favorite films. Okay, what else? The cinematography was solid. It follows An Pan-suk's usual style of being very based on evoking a sense of realism, using a lot of static shots of locations, inside and outside, reusing those shots at different points in the story to create a realistic and familiar world with locations we feel we know so well by the end. Okay, so let me get this out of the way. This is a story about Hye-won and her life, and the show and its themes and storylines center around her. Sun-jae is there too. He's technically the other lead role, but this is Hye-won's show. That being said, I think the writing does a really good job at wrapping everything else around Hye-won and her character arc. So I don't want to go into too much depth here. I'll save that for the deep dive portion of this review. But in simplest terms, the main storylines are the romance between the two leads, and then there's the shady corruption of the Sohan Arts Foundation. Now, as I've explained, both of these still have Hye-won at the center of them, but each have their own separate development as well, whether it be Sun-jae and his development as a character with his own background, or everyone else at the Sohan Arts Foundation and their role in the dirty business going on there. Of course, I won't give anything else away, but guys, I need to make sure I get this across. The romance in this story, it's cool. It's legit. I was rooting for Hye-won and Sun-jae, no doubt. But that being said, the whole Sohan Arts Foundation side plot, Hye-won trying to climb all the way to the top, everyone else plotting and scheming against her, trying to take her down, plotting against each other, the mind games, the manipulation, the double agent stuff. It was so fucking fun to watch and try to follow and figure out. I literally would have watched and thoroughly enjoyed this drama just as much if they had decided to just say, fuck a love story. This is all about Hye-won and the politics and corruption of the Arts Foundation. I am not exaggerating here when I say it was like Game of Thrones Season 1 Billions Death Note level kind of shit. And that's why this show is so good. You can enjoy it for these two separate reasons, for these two separate plot lines. I was rooting for Hye-won as a character, not just in terms of her winning the battle for her love, but also the battle against her job and her career and the people there. This woman was a straight beast. She was badass. She was a mastermind. And all right, I'm gonna stop ranting, but you get the idea. Okay, real quick, themes of the show. I'll keep it very broad here in this portion of the review. I guess it explores the questions of what it means to be happy and live freely, what true fulfillment in life is, how we love and how the ones we love affect us and change us. I know that was kind of weak, but I don't really want to spoil too much. So there you have it, my spoiler-free review for Secret Love Affair. I hope I was able to give you a better sense of what this show is about. It is a romance drama first, so if that's your thing, forbidden love, us against the world, and that's what floats your boat, go for it. If you're into plotting and scheming, characters backstabbing and having master plans, verbal warfare through great dialogue and good acting that'll have you trying to figure out who's on whose side and who's got the upper hand, we got you covered for that too. It might take you a little while to get all of the characters down and figure out how they fit into the story and how they are related to each other and all of their positions, but trust me, it is worth the effort because this is such a great drama. Oh, and if all that wasn't enough, you also get some really awesome piano playing as well. All right, I've said enough. Hopefully, for those of you who haven't seen this drama yet, I hope I was able to get you at least a little bit interested in watching it. And for those of you who have already seen it, let's get into some deeper analysis. Fair warning for everyone who doesn't want spoilers, now's the time to stop watching. Thanks for tuning in, and yeah, let's do this. Let's start with Hye-won and her life before she met Sun-jae, just for context. Hye-won's entire life has revolved around an obsession to be part of the upper class. She dedicated her younger years to this goal, and because of this had little time for anything else, like, for example, finding and experiencing true love. She ends up reaching her goal, but in doing so is now in a situation where she has become, as she puts it, an elegant slave. The So family, who runs the Arts Foundation, has paid for her education, owns the house she lives in, and the maids that work for her. Her marriage is not a product of true love, but instead one of convenience, a marriage set up for the sole purpose of being a smart career move. So now that we've established all of this, let's bring in Sun-jae. When she meets Sun-jae and begins to develop a relationship with him, there emerges several different dynamics within their relationship. Student and teacher, benefactor and beneficiary, old and young, surrogate mother and son, upper class and lower class, and eventually, of course, lovers. Then there's also other motifs and sub-themes within their character dynamic, like being pure or dirty, being free, and being imprisoned. Within these roles, there are ironies woven into the interchangeability of them, and all of this makes for a really well-developed romance with a beautiful complexity to it. These roles, which construct the themes and motifs, extend to the rest of the show and its other characters as well, with Hye-won and Sun-jae as the center. So let's get into each of these roles and how it adds dimension, not just to these two characters and their relationship, but also the show as a whole and what it's trying to say. So I think a good place to start is with what is perhaps the most central theme to Hye-won's character and her arc, which is the idea of being free versus being imprisoned. In one sense, Sun-jae is imprisoned when we first meet him, and Hye-won helps to free him. Sun-jae is of lower class and works for a delivery service. He has tremendous musical talent on the piano, but has never had the opportunity to make the most of his potential, because he has had to focus on work and supporting his mother. Hye-won is of upper class and is fairly well off. She has the freedom of financial security through her position at work. She is able to help Sun-jae get a scholarship and give him a chance to be free in pursuing and exploring his musical potential at the music college and through the Sohan Arts Foundation. In another sense, Hye-won is the imprisoned one, shackled to her benefactors, the So family, and the arts foundation she works for. She has endured this imprisonment because it helped her reach her goal of being part of the upper class. Through her romance with Sun-jae and through his encouragement, she is able to break free of these shackles, and at the end of the show, finally becomes free of that mental imprisonment. I think the show's depiction of Hye-won's literal physical imprisonment in jail is a great irony and contrast to her mental freedom that she achieves. Think about the final shot in the show, where we see Hye-won in her prison uniform, trapped within the physical boundaries of prison, and yet she is smiling and is at peace. She may be in a physical prison behind physical bars, but after such a long time and with Sun-jae's help, she has finally achieved mental and spiritual freedom. And I just thought that was such a poetic way to highlight her character arc through this irony. On the other side, Sun-jae is free of that need to be upper class, and although he is taken into that world by Hye-won, he never changes his attitude of disliking their immoral need for power and status, and the things they do to each other and others just to maintain or further that agenda. Running parallel to this is another way to look at freedom versus imprisonment, and that is the concept of love. Hye-won never got to experience true love because she was too busy pursuing her goal of becoming upper class, and ends up in a loveless marriage that is just another part of her imprisonment. Within this is the idea of marriage itself, because of course having an affair is forbidden and looked down upon. She is therefore not free to love whom she wishes, and hasn't been even before her marriage. On the other hand, Sun-jae is free to love anyone he wants, as a young man with no ties, except I guess kind of Da-mi, but they were never really official. Team Da-mi forever, represent. Okay, during the course of the show, we see Sun-jae continue to encourage Hye-won to distance herself from and let go of these people and the mindset she has become enslaved to, and to love freely and with her entire being. Even when their affair gets underway, it becomes a kind of tug of war with Hye-won's career and her affair. Which one will she prioritize? She has trouble loving Sun-jae fully and letting herself love freely and openly because her old values of reaching and maintaining upper-class status are so hard to let go of. You can also once again reverse this and see their romance as Sun-jae being a prisoner of his love for Hye-won. We see throughout the series all of the heartache and pain he is put through as a result of Hye-won not fully allowing herself to love him back at first. In a sense, she holds all the power in their relationship. She can decide when to see him or not. She tells him when to text her and when he can't. And of course, she is also his teacher and benefactor, and this plays into that power dynamic. In that sense, it is Hye-won who is free to choose whether she will continue the affair or not. Again, the show does such a good job with the writing here, where all of these kind of dynamics can be reversed and turned on their heads. There are several other characters who become imprisoned as well. There is Da-mi, who despite her persistent "I'll speak it into reality" approach to being together with Sun-jae in the end, also also becomes imprisoned in a dynamic where she has little to no power, and it becomes a one-sided romance. In episode 9, we get a good amount of backstory and development for Dami, where she explains that it was Sunjae who pulled her out of her troubled past with gangs and made her a better person. This can be looked at as a mirror to Hye-won and Sunjae's relationship, both in terms of power dynamic in love and also the idea of changing someone for the better being a trait of true love. Then there is Professor Kang, who, like Hye-won and most of the people at Sohan Arts Foundation, is imprisoned within his obsession with gaining more power and prestige and status. He has taken this to such an extreme that even when he finds out about the affair his wife is having, he only really cares about it in terms of his career and how Hye-won has taken his meal ticket to credibility away from him, rather than actually feeling betrayed romantically. Though I'll admit he does feel that a bit as well to some degree. But his actions in response to that knowledge are only based on his career and his interest in that. We can also look at Young-woo, who is a great character to compare with Hye-won. She is even more entrenched within the world of the Sohan Arts Foundation because she is actually directly part of the family. She is the daughter of the chairman. She is trapped within her father's authority and his expectations. Like Hye-won, she has never experienced true love, and she tries to fill that void with affairs with younger men. It's interesting to see how different these characters are presented, when in fact this is technically exactly what Hye-won does with Sunjae. The difference here is that, well, first, Young-woo is incredibly sloppy, whereas Hye-won is cunning and smooth about it. But also, like we talked about just before, there's Sunjae's encouragement, his advocacy of breaking free and away from the world of the Sohan Arts Foundation. Whereas all of the men Young-woo has affairs with seem to be wanting to get closer to that world and to use her to get nice things. Young-woo also, just like Hye-won, has a marriage of convenience, but again, hers is a slightly different and therefore sadder circumstance. Whereas Professor Kang at least kind of gets mad about Hye-won's affair with Sunjae, Young-woo's husband, the lawyer dude, gives absolutely zero fucks about her affair. There is a moment in episode 15 where Young-woo asks her husband if he even ever liked her at all. And yeah, it's pretty sad. I actually felt really bad for Young-woo as a character, and I think the writers did a really good job at making her this kind of tragic version of Hye-won. Oh, we can also talk about the chairman himself as being imprisoned, as he states during the show in episode 10. He tells Hye-won she's lucky she doesn't have children because he feels imprisoned or trapped by his children and the nepotism he feels chained to indulge in with his daughter. This all starts to tie in with another theme of family, but I'll get to that later on. Okay, sorry. We were talking about freedom versus imprisonment. Okay, so the very last example of this, and another great irony the show creates, is the dynamic between the Sohan Arts Foundation and Hye-won. We've gone over how in each of these people's personal lives, the So family are imprisoned in various ways, but as a group, it also applies. Throughout the whole series, Hye-won seems to be imprisoned or held hostage by these people who own her, who she is indebted to, who she serves. But the tables turn when the investigation of the Foundation begins, and it becomes the very dirty secrets and tasks these people have forced her to hold onto that become her weapon that allows her to hold all of them hostage in the end. Suddenly, it is the worst dirt, the most immoral dealings Hye-won had to carry out and be a part of during her life of mental imprisonment to these people that end up becoming her ticket to freedom from it. Something I found interesting about this drama looking back is 1, the choice to make this romance an affair, and 2, how it chose to frame that affair within the story. Let me try and explain. When we think of an affair, we think of infidelity, the failure of a marriage, of love, the betrayal, the wrongness of it. It's a bad thing, right? And yet so little of the show and so few of the characters within the show seem concerned with the affair for these reasons. The romance forms and develops within this world of the Sohan Arts Foundation that Hye-won is a part of and that Sunjae is dragged into, a world that is portrayed as morally corrupt. This surrounding environment actually ends up making their relationship seem pure or good by comparison. Every other character around Hye-won definitely cares about her affair, but no one seems seems to care about it morally as a wrong thing that she is doing to her husband and the idea of marriage and love. Instead, they only care because they see it as an opportunity to take Hye-won down, as a weakness and a chance to get ahead in a game of climbing the ladder of power that they're all obsessed with. The question of morality, immoral versus pureness or goodness, is shown in the show with subtle religious references as well. In episode 1, Hye-won bites into an apple right after her husband tells her about Sun Jae, and that he will be bringing him in for her to listen to. Perhaps a reference to the idea of original sin and temptation, the apple in the Garden of Eden. In episode 3, Sun Jae tells Hye-won that when she became his teacher, he became reborn. When everyone knows about the affair and Professor Kong is a complete wreck, he still pushes back on the idea of divorcing Hye-won because it's not the Christian thing to do, and this is a Christian household or something like that. Hye-won is made to be the fall guy for the Sohan Arts Foundation. They want to sacrifice her for all of their sins. Sound familiar biblically? The irony that the show creates here is that in one sense this affair can be seen as immoral, as a sin, and yet it seems to be the most purifying thing in the show amidst an environment of immorality and corruption. In the finale, Hye-won goes to court, and there she delivers a monologue that can only be seen as her confession to her part in all of the corruption, to her sins. It is Sun Jae that helps Hye-won change and become brave enough to confess her sins and rid herself of the world she was a part of. He helps her cleanse herself of that world and her past. Let's talk about Hye-won and Sun Jae's romance a bit more. One of the main themes within their romance and relationship is music. It's what initially brings them together and what contextualizes the development of their relationship. There are several different ways music is used in the show, and it sort of becomes a metaphor for love, passion, and freedom, in my opinion. Let me make my case. I think there is a duality within Sun Jae's talent for playing the piano and Hye-won's recognition of it. On the one hand, Hye-won is very attracted to that talent, to his musical ability, but since music, as I claim, is a metaphor for love and freedom, it also represents her eventual realization that she envies his ability to love passionately and freely. The first time Hye-won and Sun Jae sit down to play piano together, Hye-won wears white and Sun Jae wears black, just like the keys on a piano. The first time they play piano together, and several times after that as well, the scenes are clearly meant as a metaphor for sex, as we see both characters so passionate and in sync while they play. They sweat, they gasp for air, and after they finish, it's as if they have just, Sun Jae even makes a reference to this when he talks about being a virgin, saying that he imagines it must be similar to when they play piano together, perfectly in sync and as one. Anyways, I thought this was such a cool way to show the characters' chemistry together, without words, and through music. There are also other references made by these two later on. Sun Jae tells Hye-won that love should be like music, that it must be enjoyed in full and to not let anything stop you from enjoying it. And Hye-won also mentions at one point that music conquers all, which of course sounds a lot like the expression love conquers all. We also see close to the end of the show when Sun Jae starts playing with that group of other students that are planning on quitting the school, he really looks like he's enjoying what he's doing, much more so than preparing for competitions. Again, a love and freedom in playing music together and for fun, not for the foundation and the school. Oh, also another random detail, if you remember in the first episode when Hye-won sees Professor Kong watching Sun Jae play through the internet, she notices that Sun Jae doesn't suck at playing. He's actually just injured and in pain. And if he didn't have that problem, he would probably play music better and more freely. What finger of Sun Jae's is injured? His ring finger, where we wear our wedding ring. Hye-won then first talks to Sun Jae through her fake internet alias and helps him get his injury taken care of by suggesting a doctor who can fix it. I think this was definitely a little bit of foreshadowing here, seeing as it is Sun Jae that helps fix the problem of Hye-won's loveless marriage by falling in love with him, just like she helps fix his ring finger, and just like he is able to play better after his finger is healed, Hye-won is able to become free from her enslavement to the Sohan Arts Foundation and the imprisonment of her mindset of valuing the upper class above all else, and also her missing out on true love because of that imprisonment. The first major example of family we can look at is the family So, who runs the Sohan Arts Foundation. We've got Chairman So, his wife, the old fox, Madam Han, and his daughter, So Young Woo. Then we've got the family of the married couple, Hye-won and Professor Kong. Then we've also got Sun Jae and his family, his mom, and we can kind of lump Da-mi in there too. All of these families interconnect in various ways throughout the show, and when we identify them, we can also see some parallels in these connections. We can look at Hye-won as also being part of the So family herself, since she is indebted to them in so many ways. Chairman So paid for her education and became her benefactor, took her under his wing, and gave her a job. If this sounds a little familiar, it's probably because it's very similar to what happens with Sun Jae and Hye-won. Hye-won takes Sun Jae under her wing, helps him get his education paid for, and brings him into the same world the So family brought her into. Both Hye-won and Sun Jae started off as lower class as well. We'll talk about that more in a bit. Although Hye-won is without a doubt the protagonist in this story, and is also the most developed character, she is also the person we know the least about family-wise. Mother, father, brothers, sisters, cousins? We barely know anything about her actual family. Instead, the So family seems to stand in as her surrogate family. Chairman So as a father figure, his wife, Madam Han, in a kind of mother role, and perhaps Young Woo as a sister. When you think about their relationships in the series, it kind of fits, right? Let's once again go back to Sun Jae. Although he does have a real mother when the show begins, she dies pretty early on, RIP, and besides becoming his lover, as weird as it is, Hye-won also kind of fills in that mother role for him as well. Professor Kong also kind of, he tries to fill in as a father figure, but pretty much fails miserably. Still, without a doubt, through their joint interest in Sun Jae's musical career, there is definitely a kind of surrogate parent vibe going on with these two. Although the fact that Hye-won and Professor Kong don't have kids is staring us right in the face the entire show, it's hardly ever mentioned or explained. Think about that scene where they have the photo shoot and Sun Jae is there with Hye-won and Professor Kong and they all take that photo together. The outfit Sun Jae is made to change into almost looks too much like a little boy's outfit, such that the way the picture is set up, it basically looks like a family portrait. It's interesting to think about this dynamic because the sort of parental attention Sun Jae gets from this couple is very much the result of their own self-interest. They see him as a way for them to succeed as well. Yes, even Hye-won in the beginning. Even after Hye-won has clearly fallen in love with Sun Jae, her interest in his career as it relates to the Sohan Arts Foundation remains for quite some time, sort of complicating and putting into question at times her full commitment to their romance and her intentions behind it. We can look further into both of these adopted children and their families, Hye-won and Sun Jae, and how their families view them. Both children were made to bear the secret of their adopted parents, Hye-won holding on to the files that proved all of the dirty business going on within the foundation, and Sun Jae holding on to the secret of his affair with Hye-won. Both of these secrets end up coming out eventually, and in both cases, the adopted child was made to feel like the parents had power over them and suffered because of that. Look, I'm not trying to point this out to say that Hye-won was a bad person or character, but it's just interesting to identify how she did make Sun Jae suffer a great deal before eventually being able to change her ways and give in to love, much like the So family did to her. It's actually just really good character development because it shows where she got this from, where she learned it. The good thing is, Hye-won was able to break that cycle and be better. So there's a lot of references to social class and its significance in this series. First, we have Hye-won, who, as we know, went from lower class to upper class and is obsessed with staying there and going farther up still. So much so that she puts it before her love life and her marriage, which sadly for her have nothing to do with each other. Then there's Sun Jae, who is lower class, but thanks to Hye-won's help has the opportunity to move up and enter into the world of the upper class. There's many references to both of these characters' social standing, understanding, like Hye-won mentioning to her husband that she wishes she could go back to her 20s when she wasn't upper class yet and was free from all of the struggles that come with it. This was a pretty insightful moment because it shows Hye-won's own way of looking at these positions. Hye-won sees separating herself from being upper class as going back or going back down. She looks at her life as a linear thing that goes upward. It really sheds more light on why it was so hard for her to break free from it and choose to freely love Sun-jae. It was due to this way of measuring her life. There's also Sun-jae and his perceived upward mobility into the upper class, thanks to his scholarship and his talent and him attending a prestigious school and perhaps becoming a star. This perception comes mainly from Da-mi and Jung-ho, who remind Sun-jae not to forget where he comes from early on. There's a great scene in episode 11 where Da-mi and Jung-ho kind of try to have an intervention with Sun-jae. They warn him about the dangers of getting involved with Hye-won and the people around her because they are upper class and those people will use him and manipulate him in their own self-interest. Both Sun-jae and Hye-won get brought into this world of the Sohan Arts Foundation. The difference is only Hye-won cares about belonging there. Anyways, my bad, back to that scene in episode 11. I really liked how the positioning of the characters mirrored what was happening in their conversation. Sun-jae is seated at his piano above Da-mi and Jung-ho, who are down below him. They want to talk with him and ask him to come down to where they are, but he refuses to do so, and says he can hear them from up there. Sun-jae is physically above them, and also, they feel, maybe rising above them in life, becoming distant. They want him to hear what they have to say and come down to their level. He then comes halfway down the stairs and listens, but as soon as they suggest staying away from Hye-won, he stops listening to them and then moves back up to his position above them. And there is framed behind this railing as if he is behind bars or imprisoned. And I feel like this is showing, in a sense, his feelings of being trapped in the situation of loving Hye-won and not knowing if she will love him back, fully and freely. Look, she is able to change for him at the end, but it doesn't happen right away, and he suffers a lot before that happens, waiting for her, letting her dictate how things are gonna go, and here I think visually this scene tells a lot just by how it's shot. After this, Sun-jae plays the piano for them, and it is so incredibly amazing and beautiful. Da-mi and Jung-ho kind of just give up arguing with him and leave. Again, we see this motif of music and how it represents freedom and love. From Da-mi and Jung-ho's perspective, when they talk to Sun-jae, he is behind these bars, but once he plays for them, communicating his love for Hye-won and the depth of it through his playing, they understand, and without saying anything further, they know he cannot be convinced otherwise. It was such a well-done scene where Sun-jae communicates and is understood by his friends through his music without words. Another visual detail or motif is the staircase to Sun-jae's apartment. I thought it was interesting in relation to all of the references and emphasis on Hye-won being upper class and Sun-jae being lower class. For example, when Hye-won and Professor Kong go to visit Sun-jae in his apartment in episode 2, there are a lot of visual signals that show their upper class position and his lower class position. There is also the motif of Sun-jae always cleaning up when they come over, as if his apartment would be too dirty for them. This is a brilliant contrast made by the show to Sun-jae's own belief that Hye-won's world she belongs to is itself dirty and immoral and bad. Anyways, back to the stairs outside Sun-jae's apartment. So despite all of these other visual signals and also references in general to their upper class, lower class dynamic, every time Hye-won goes to visit Sun-jae, she must literally go upwards to get to him. Also, his piano is positioned even higher up within his apartment, but maybe that's overdoing it a bit. Anyways, I just thought this really showed how even though upper class is supposed to be above the lower class, the fact that Hye-won has to climb up these stairs to get to Sun-jae above shows that the place she is coming from, which is the world of the Sohan Arts Foundation and all of its moral corruption, is actually below Sun-jae and his pureness, his freedom in love. You think I'm reaching a little bit? Well, how about this scene in episode 9 where Hye-won actually talks about going up these stairs directly? She says that going up felt like a kind of journey she was undertaking, and this has to be a reference to my claim here. This staircase that she must go up to get to Sun-jae, it's a visual metaphor for her eventual climb to the top, not of the Sohan Arts Foundation food chain, not up the social class ladder, but towards her ability to love freely and be be freed from that misguided notion of upward mobility. In that same episode, she also talks about the ramen she ate at his apartment and how even though it was just cheap ramen, it tasted so good and was better than anything she had had recently. Again, it is the ramen that is in this space that represents her eventual freedom from everything she has worked so hard to get, something she has to climb up to, that makes all of the money, the material wealth, the fancy food she probably eats whenever she pleases seem just not good. Okay, so I'm getting to the point where I'm talking about metaphorical ramen, so that probably means I should stop there. So the ending. I was actually really satisfied with the ending. It just felt right. Hye-won goes to prison. She will be there for a couple of years, but like we went over already, she is only physically imprisoned. Mentally and spiritually, she has finally taken the leap and freed herself of all the chains and shackles of the upper class life she valued so much before. This inner freedom and peace is evident in her final shot as she smiles behind the fence, just enjoying the day and chilling. She has made her choice to start over. She loses everything from her former life, but in return gets her chance to finally be free and be with Sunjae once she gets out. It's not a promised happy ending, but a hopeful one. Also, I love seeing the hint that Dami and Jung-ho might end up together when she leans on his shoulder. I had an absolutely massive crush on her character the whole show, so I'm glad to see that she ends up fairly happy. We see Sunjae leaving his apartment, but he says that he'll be back. And one thing I wanted to include is that although the implication is Sunjae is leaving to continue his music career while Hye-won is in prison, and although this isn't hinted at really or mentioned in the show, I think it's a possibility that Sunjae might one day become a teacher himself. It's the final dynamic between them, student and teacher, that is mixed in with all of the others and that I didn't go over separately. And I feel like during the show we see more and more that Sunjae is a great and natural teacher. He teaches Hye-won to break free and start over, and towards the end he's a natural with those other students, leading them in their playing and giving them all a chance to enjoy music freely, just like Hye-won gave him a chance. Remember, these were students who were going to drop out because they couldn't afford or get expensive instruments. The cycle of benefactor and beneficiary continues. And I don't know, maybe it's just me seeing this, but it just seems like a perfect fit for Sunjae, who seems so talented, not just at playing the piano, but also at helping others enjoy love, life, and music more freely and with passion. Well, I mean, except for when this happened. Yeah, that wasn't his best moment. All right, that's all I got. I really enjoyed this show a lot. It was so meticulously constructed, from its story and character development to its themes and its score. I think that finding someone that helps you change yourself can be a beautiful thing, and I like how this show specifies that it's not so much finding a person that wants you to change into something brand new, but a person who is able to truly understand you and find something already present within you that for whatever reason you have allowed to stay silent, and bring that out into the open and give it power. Just like Hye-won helped Sunjae with his musical talent, just like Sunjae helped Hye-won listen to the voice inside her that was saying this life she had chosen wasn't really making her happy. Anyways, that's it for me, guys. Hope you enjoyed the review. If you liked this video, please be sure to check out some of my other deep dives, and maybe you'll enjoy them too. And with that being said, I can't believe you watched this whole video. I'm TwoTenEast. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.